some time ago, I did a show, Top of the Dojo, and I missed Buck Duck because it wasn't, I don't know, something about the times not being there. Anyways, dude wrote in and be like, "Boss, I've been doing the work. You should look at my game. You should look at my business." So we're going to take a look. And Buck Duck is, of course, way up here and has been, it's just so hard once you reach 2,000 let me just put it in perspective. To reach, 2,000, it's so much harder to make a 100-point game when you get here than it is, at 400. At 400, you might make a game pretty quick. With this, it's going to be hard. Yeah, so you could see Buck Duck is working on it. I came up with a metaphor that I kind of like. It's not perfect, and it goes kind of just visualizing how hard it is. And Strong Chess has been helping me with this. But in general, if you want to think about it in terms of weightlifting and the percentiles, this is what we came up with, just roughly speaking, So that it would mean, let me do this, where's my numbers? So an 1,800, okay, would be able to bench press 350 pounds. Now let me just say, Bows, 350 pounds, that's epic. That's epic. And it's not like everyone can make it to 350. Forget about it. Forget about it. And this is just using the percentiles of people in weightlifting competitions with chess competitions, right? People who actually go to the tournaments, not people on ChessCom. Then a 2,000, so this is what Buck Duck is. That's why I thought about it, would need to be pressing 400, bench pressing 400 bows, 400. And then a 2,200 would be bench pressing 475. Just the idea of bench pressing 475 is just like, what? And I think it's confusing to people, and it made a lot of people mad when I was like, the chances of somebody like around 50 making it from 1,800 to 2,200 are slim. Made a lot of people mad. I was like, "Are you crushing my dreams, boss?" And I was like, "No, I'm just trying to explain it using some math." And it's maybe not as enlightening for other people. For me, it's interesting. I'm not huge into weightlifting, but I'm doing some CrossFit and stuff, so we do some weightlifting, and I've made some progress, and just with the bench press, we could say, let's be generous and say I've gained 20 pounds on my bench press, okay? 20 pounds. I'm not close to 225 either, buddy, And then 350, forget about it. I will never bench 350, bud. You could put me on steroids, training program, whatever you want, bows, but ain't going no 350. Hi, Abdul. Beverages is here. All right, so anyways, that's about Buck Duck's quest. I bring it up because I just want to be clear, it is hard. It is a hard quest that dude is on. If he made graduation at 2,100, that would be amazing, dude. That would be amazing. By the way, in your profile settings, there's a little box you can click that says link to profile. And what that would do is show a little link here. Now, some people, understandably, don't want me or anyone else to stalk them, to find out maybe what their name is or to see their FIDE thing. So that just up to you to realize, though, that you can check that box. And if you do, it gives others the ability to click. I think, for me, it's mostly interesting. I think Buck Duck's in Germany. I don't know why I think that, but that's in my head somehow. It'd be interesting for me to look at, like, is he playing like some cool German Bundesliga games and stuff. My student Jamil won a nice game in the English, like, London League, That's always fun. Okay, so 2,100 FIDE translates well to about NM, which is 2,200 USCF. That's right. That's true, right? And for the Europeans, I think it was for the Europeans that this notion of candidate master was created. Back in the day, we didn't have candidate master, but it does make sense that it shouldn't just be FIDE master, which is 2,300. That's intense, dude. Give us something below that. All right, so let's take a look at Buck Duck here. Dude has done a crushing amount of work. Good macro distribution here. And let's just click around here. Great. Yeah, that's really good. And we get some end games. Done the REP match. How many we got? 5, dude. So Buck Duck is crushing with the REP match. As we've talked about, we're going to try to make that a little more user-friendly. Some opening work. Genius. We are in the process of revitalizing this opening thing. I will do some video on it once that gets done. Middle games and strategy. Look at that, dude. I think one of the things that is maybe not so fun about the lower cohorts is you don't really get access to these classic books. And one of the things I got to say about these books is like, let's say you're a dude like Alakine or just some chump GM like me. When you think of a book, you start thinking like, oh, I want to share like some amazing deep ideas. I want to go do some deep annotations. And so most of the books that are written for a higher level of player, right? And those are the great games. Life in Games, it's all about Vinix 60, New York 1924, all this stuff, right? Those are hard. You need a certain level before you're ready for those books. Okay, so this is all looking good. And we'll click around to tactics. Dude has done a lot. Basically all the mates in 2. That is great. And in fact, then let's look at the training plan. I mean, dude has done all the games and analysis. Dude has done all the tactics, done pretty much the end game, and has some books to read. Yeah, 80% complete. Could work a little bit on the openings and stuff. One thing that's interesting about long timers like myself too is by the time you're getting close to actually finishing everything, there will be things that like you did ages ago that you're going to have to repeat, Like the opening is, I think the opening stuff is once every year. Like say the Polgar mates, that's once every 3 years, Different things have different time. They phase out, because you have to prove yourself again. Also up here you can see Dojo 1.0, but that means Buck Duck has been with us from the early days when we did not have a beautiful site. Good morning, Nordovich. Great Reddit post about if FM can prove to IM, and an FM gave a very insightful answer. Well, is that something you linked to or something? I would be interested in seeing that. Now if I click this thing, sometimes oh good, it opened in this window. I'm going to read this a little bit before we get on to Buck Duck. How big of a difference is there between an FM and an IM? And then Mr. Big Dude, who's a retired FM. This reply isn't meant to be a universal answer to your CAP question. It's just my reflection on the FM to IM process. When I reached FM, I was pretty active, good results. Thought about what it might take, but it seemed like a big enough commitment that I didn't pursue it. I became an FM by scoring heavily against experts and low masters, 2000s through 2200s, doing decently against strong masters and occasionally nicking an IM or GM for a draw. To reach IM, I'd have to shift these results up by a category. I'd need to dominate pretty much all the masters, get roughly even results against IMs, and frequently not lose to GMs. Yeah, I wasn't prepared to make chess that large a focus of my life. Could anyone willing to make that commitment get from FM to IM? I kind of think not, but it happens often enough that it seems like many players do have that capability. Okay, this is kind of interesting. Yeah. FM to IM, you know, when you is really in a lot of ways a 100-point gap, right? Because you got to get 2,300 for a certain amount of games for FM, and then IM you got to reach 2,400 plus you got to have your norms, right? Which I think are just 3 tournaments at 2,350. So in a lot of ways, a 100-point gap, and it's hard. That's a hard one to close. And I got in big trouble for crushing people's dreams recently, but I will say that I do think anyone can do 100 points from where they are. And why do I bring it up now? Because Buck Duck, I don't know how old Buck Duck is, but I don't think he's a kid. And obviously the dream here for Buck Duck would be to make a 100-point gain, and that would put him at either candidate master or what we call national master in the States. And in a lot of ways, that 100-point gain is what the dojo program is built around, right? It's not built around the dream that an adult improver could go, just sky's the limit. I mean, obviously that'd be great, but to really say these requirements that we have, the idea is that if you do them and you're training consistently, playing consistently, that you have a good shot of making that 100 points, right? And then, of course, for most players aren't at their plateau, especially now in the pandemic. A lot of people haven't even played over the board chess yet, right? They're just experimenting with it. So they've got some runway to just see where is it that they are gonna plateau. Eventually, they will hit that plateau, and that's when it gets hard. That's when you have to do some very hard work, like the training program, boom, to take it to the next level. Of course, what's great about the training program is most people who aren't on the plateau, boom, they're doing 20% of the work. Some people are doing 5% of the work. Boom, they're getting that bump right away. Yeah. Okay. So, I don't have the answer to Pepper Chess's question. And, how come this isn't working? Good. So, all right, let's keep going. We want to look at a game or two of Buck Ducks and hopefully say something constructive. So let's look at this. This was played recently. Biberak versus Vietnam. So first of all, I'm a genius and recognized that I was right. It was in Germany. Really cool that I played at Vietnam. We were in the second Bundesliga and then made it to the first. And we were not a professional team. Historical note. Our top board was Igor Rouse. He's the guy who was later caught cheating in the bathroom. Back then, this was in the 90s. He didn't, he was like 2,500, 2,500 GM, sometimes bouncing a little bit below it. And so he wasn't cheating then, but then later, he got into the bathroom and his rating went up to like 2660. It was really a bummer. But I have fond memories of the Bundesliga, of Vietnam. Vietnam is a little village, dude. So it's kind of weird that they have a big chess team, but it was close to Heidelberg where I was. So here we go. And let's flip the board. Dennis Wagner is Buck Duck. So, this is kind of, let's say it's a kind of a tame approach for white. Okay, right. So we're going to get a big imbalance here. And this is a big decision. It would be cool if there were times given. It doesn't look like there are, though. Okay. The times would tell us a little bit like, is white tanking here? And how long did we take when we took the pawn? Now, my sense is if we're going to take that pawn, we have to hold it. Because the bishop, he's going to win this bishop, right? And then this bishop is going to be set free. If that bishop gets full freedom, if he wins the pawn back, then no. Because the whole idea in all these positions for white is, can I open the position? For example, one option here is just to be a lame-o and kick it, right? And then we get something like this, and you sit, and you never, ever, ever move these pawns at all. Never, ever, ever. You just say, bows. I put my pawns on the white, keep my bishop on the dark, and I'm going to sit, right? Okay, so that's one way to do it. All right. So we take, very ambitious. White plays e3. And then, well, to me, the question is, can you play b5? If you don't play b5, then I don't think you should play dc, right? So what I'm saying is we gotta get something for what we have given white, which is this active position. So here's this position that Buckduck analyzes. The plans GM Wagner suggested to me after the game. Black keeps his pawn structure and tries to use the fact that white had played the not-so-useful g3 move while having his bishop on b3. Okay. I would be very nervous. Let me just say, if I saw this position, I wouldn't want to play DC. So also, let's just say the obvious, you don't have to go to that square. You could also go there, a little bit more natural to me. This way we might play b3 later. Yeah, nervous, and you're going to eventually owe me a tempo to play g6 or something. Yeah. And then we're saying b5, bishop g2. This approach doesn't work with a pawn on f5 and no light square bishop. White will soon win its pawn back with dividends on the queen side. So let's check. Because if he doesn't win the pawn, then I think we want to do this. So the candidate moves here, bishop b4 and queen b6. I don't know. Or wait, excuse me, there's knight d7. What are we saying? No, what do you stop bows? Excuse me. Excuse me, I didn't mean that. All right, queen b6. So let me just say, I don't know if this is going to work, but if I was going to play DC, that's what I would want to do, because you were giving such a concession by opening the position for the light square bishop. So let's say it again. White's investing time in this knight h4. There's a million different ways we can give him our bishop. In fact, if we're going to give it to him, might as well play like this. You know, fine. Do it like that. And then bishop g4 also is a thought. But actually, we should go through this because Buckduck's saying a sample line to illustrate a point about my decision to play c5. Well, why would he go back, though? Wouldn't his intention be h3 here, here, here? Right? Anyways, this is a sample line that he wants us to look at for this. That's too highfalutin for me. I can't. I can't even. What happened there? I don't know, man. There's something going on. I can't do it though. Okay, so C5 is catastrophic. And it's important to understand why, though. Let's see if he says anything about why this is bad. So, to me, the issue with C5 is, one, it costs you a tempo. Two, it loosened these light squares. What does that mean? That means that the knight in this position has some work to do. After this position, he's now a full-fledged piece. And if we're taking on D4, I don't know what white's can even do yet, but if we take on D4, we're freeing his other problem piece, right? Okay, I think white has several moves here. Let's see what they do. Pop. Simple. Takes. Now, was it necessary, dude? I mean, could we have played knight c6 instead? Because once we take, then the bishop is angry. This one. Abdul's saying d5 maybe here, and that's maybe true, but it's not over yet because we'll do something like this, and then we'll play a6 soon. The simpleton approach here for white would be to take. I'm not sure if we castle, black wants to steal the pawn. It's probably too dangerous to do it. Okay, but let's look at the game. So he takes, and now I definitely like white with the bishop on c1 free. Now, Buck Duck, listen. The thing that should go through your head is that with your plan, you liberated two pieces of whites, right? And I think when you see it that way, that'll help you from a variety of other positions, right? Okay, so, and by the way, one of the things I've said, I did some videos like how do you reach 2100 and stuff like that. And often it's the sensitivity to active and non-active pieces that is the difference. In some ways, you could think about it as giving time, right? You could talk about it because when you think about it, right, in this position, white is going to have to spend some time to fix both of these pieces. But then later, they're fixed. And time, he didn't have to spend any time. So you could talk about it both ways. You could say active pieces, you could talk about time. Okay. So bishop d6, the bishop is pretty unhappy there. And you write, I think I have to play like this and pray there is no direct refutation. Wagner didn't find a clear way to refute my setup outright and goes for sound development, which gives him a very pleasant position. Okay, now, this looks highly dubious, but let's just put it on the board. So, we got two problems, queen a4 and bishop f7. And bishop f7 probably is going to, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure, actually. So anyways, before we get into the tactics, the reason to play this move is to try to play two knights against the two bishops. It's going to get ugly, but we at least are doing something. And by that I mean on d6 you're hitting a rock on g3. At least that's the way it looks to me. I get it. I guess Buck Duck wants to play f4. So first let's just check if this is even playable. So the first piece of good news, I think, is that here I don't lose a piece. And then also here I don't lose a piece. Okay. You know, it's still very nice for white. We can imagine castles. But I'm going to take on c3. I'm going to be solid. I'm going to play rook c8. I'm going to whack him around a little bit. And I feel like maybe I'm worse, but maybe I'm not toast. Okay, so bishop d6. Queen f3. He's trying to knock you out right away. And you're talking about bishop b5, knight d7, castles, queen f3. Okay. Yeah, it's rough. Bishop b5 is a little counterintuitive because it's moving to Belfi's twice. Okay. Now, I still like the white position a lot. So queen f3, knight c6. And now here. If for whatever reason white didn't like this, they could play the pawn sack with, or not pawn sack, but just castles. And white's going to be much better because of the open board and the bishops. So now you go queen d7. And then you investigate g6. And you're afraid of bishop h6. But bishop h6, first of all, doesn't look correctamundo because of knight takes d4. And maybe even the weird bishop f8. But okay, knight g4, let's believe you that that's good enough. Now your move probably is going to be similar with queen d7. And I think, you know, while white's definitely better here, it's true that he's not going to be able to immediately knock you out anytime soon. Okay, so queen d7 natural also. Castles. And now Buck Duck's knight says that he can access d5. And that brings us to kind of some of the problems in this position. This bishop is in the way. That's why I want it on d4. It will be very hard to win this square because white has this beast. And that is generally the square black wants to control. So white's just going to make some natural moves here. Rook a1. And Buck Duck does some good analysis here and writes that he likes rook fe8 best. Now, we're talking about d5, but unless we win something for the d5 move, I don't think we should play d5 because it blocks the scope of our boys here. Bishop b3 might be reasonable anyway, just to get out of the way. So knight a5 and whatever doesn't hurt us too directly. Yeah, I think we should mostly welcome d5 coming. Any kind of d5 from him. Well, the challenge is very simple. We need a plan, you know? We need a plan. It's not so simple. It's not so simple. White has an abstract advantage, but it is not the easiest thing to figure out how to play this bad boy. Anyways, bishop b3 makes sense. And then buck duck likes rook a b8. One fun variation might be bishop a4, a6, d5, and knight e5. Still, this whole thing isn't going to work. Well, when I do this, you know? Yeah, something like that. I'm threatening bishop d6 followed by queen f5 at some point. No, that's something. It's not the end of the world for black, but it's a little bit annoying. Okay, so let's look. And he says the beginning of a wrong plan. a3. Now a3 might be, maybe that's a class move. Again, the timestamps would be cool here. Rook fd8. Okay. So, by the way, this a3, it might seem mystical, but in isolated queen pawn positions, the a3 move is generally great because it does several things. It blocks this bad boy, prepares, oftentimes you can use this square, you can reroute the bishop through here, and also for this position where the main thing that's going on is white has this unopposed light square bishop, is we want to put our pawns on the dark squares and just curate. We want to curate this beautiful bishop on c4. Rook fd8, rook fe1, g6. I really should have double and triple checked the lines here because I had spotted bishop g5. The short answer is I did not know what else to do. I did not even consider rook e8 to correct my wrong placement during my 15-minute thing here. And then the knight can't go to e5. Okay. Let's do his knight e5 variation. e6. We could also play rook takes e7. Okay, so that's a bummer. And then this is a nice move. Look at that bad boy. Oh, that's some unfortunate welcome to the dojo stuff. This guy wasn't even part of the dojo. So, right. And what's cool about the line is this bishop had been serving as the de facto, let's call it, blockader of the d6 square. And what happens in a very quick and surprising way is that it all just falls apart because we're able to crush that blockade square. And now we're just crispy critters. Okay, well, that was a good game, dude. That was a good game. Good annotations, too. It's interesting, too, like how fast, how fast it happens with the dynamic potential of these bishops. Yeah. Okay, that was really good. Let's do another one. So, let's go back. Games. And this is Buck Duck playing someone close to... Oh, this is rated classical game, Lee chess. Okay. So, I think we have to do this. There we go. Very frisky for white, for black. Okay. Oh, Buck Duck, take it easy, man. He's just killing him here. Okay. That's good notes. But why aren't we winning? How come we're not winning at all these things? So, dude plays here. Let's see. This is our position. Here and here. Now, we're definitely better here, especially if we play knight ge2. We just have a nice position. So we don't want to ever have a position where black is equal or something. And what we're saying here is bishop e4. At first I thought that f5 directly loses a pawn. Suddenly black has ideas like bishop f5, bishop e4, and rook e8. Yeah, and Federico the f-pawn really would like to go home, but he can't. Okay, so that was actually really good, Buck Duck. You did not take the thing. So, but I think we have to say, though, that if that's true, what you missed was you have to say, oh, I missed that when I took ef6. So ef6 is therefore a mistake because you were counting on the fact that it wasn't going to work. ef6, good move. I mean, he's just barely holding on, right? And then knight d2 definitely seems like an unclear position. Check to the miserable king. Ooh, Buck Duck, take it easy, Bows. Very nice. Okay. Yeah, he gives you a pawn, you should take it. No, that ain't it, Bows. That ain't it. Yeah, this is what it looks like when you play against the dojo and you don't develop your stuff. That isn't it, buddy. That's not going to help. All right, f5. I'm sure there's other ways to do it, but it isn't terrible. The simple move, of course, would be rook e1. We need to also try to think of a way to get this knight in. I don't like f5 intuitively because you're blocking your queen's zap chances over here. So, okay, well, let's put it in. It can't be that bad. Good. Oh, that isn't it, Bows. Oh, nice. Really nice form. Now we're just going to fix our knight. I was talking about sensitivity to bad pieces, and here you did it, right? You had a bad piece, and you're fixing the thing. Nice move. Simple chess. That isn't it. That isn't it. Dang. Take it easy, Buck Duck. Dang. Whew, man. That was a good game. That was a good game. So that's an example of a game where, you're playing somebody, I guess 1970, I saw 1977, but it's someone lower rated. And it looks like it was like a full on, anyways, the times weren't entered somehow. But it seems like they're entered, hold on. It's like times per move or something are being entered in a way I don't understand. Anyways, that was great. A little drafty, that's right. So, Buck Duck is saying that position after queen takes e4, there's a way for white to stabilize. But, I think you made a good point. Like maybe the computer has some way to stabilize. Where is that point? This one. No, dude, I don't know. He's definitely got some compensation. I mean, you were right about that. Well, let me just say, like the thing when you say it's right, it's more like the computer says it's right. I wouldn't want to do it. I want to do it. The main mistake I think was this one. EF6. Because you were right to be like no. I can't. For example, I'm looking at this position. I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no low interesto in this one. Yeah, I don't want it. Oh, and here we got this dirty trick. Bishop f5, 95. That's a dirty trick. Okay. Okay. I'm not gonna deny. Can't deny it. It's a dirty trick. Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's still, we're going to play bishop b4, and then I guess you got a castle. And bishop, rook e8, you're going to take on, you got to be wild and take on h7. Okay, so the computer shows. Computer shows. All right, cool. So, you guys, let's continue. So what I thought today I would do is do the top of the dojo from 1200 on for a little bit. And I shouted out the people I'm going to cover over here. And the first is Kevin. Again, let me just reiterate the idea of this show, right? I want to look at people who have done a lot of work, but then for whatever reason, haven't graduated. Maybe I can say something helpful. Also, maybe understand something about the program. Okay. Now, the good news is Kevin has made some progress. No doubt about it. Right. That's, he's got that, wait a second. Got it. Okay. So 1274 normalized needs a little bit more to get to the magical 1300. MD Knight, thank you for the subs. Let's take a look at what Kevin's doing. Looks good. I like that there's no openings in here. There's not a lot of non-JoJo. Dude is committed. Dude is fully committed to the process. Good. Good. Oh, dude is doing the work. Excellent. And then we got all these games. Okay, so everything looks, at least from the surface, looks really good on what's going on. So let's take a look at Kevin. Be cool if we had one that was an OTB, but it looks like we probably don't. So let's go here. And I don't know, me and Jack have been talking about why the default isn't working, but it's easy to fix. Okay, close Sicilian, G3. right? In my course, I talk about knight f3, but g3, okay. Let's just talk briefly about why g3 breaks the rules. g3 breaks the rules because you already made a pawn move to get, whoa, g3, whoa, look at that. Oh no, something's wrong, Jack. I'm putting my finger over here, e2 to e4, and then it's going b2, b4. Wait, let me refresh. Maybe something happened weird. Okay, so let's go back. So no, now it's showing the A pawn movement. Oh, Jack, something happened terrible, dude. Do I have to reboot the computer? I don't know. Anyways, I'm just going to say it then. We've already moved a pawn for the bishop on f1. And so now we're moving an extra pawn. I think d5 is a fine move here for black. Okay, bishop g2. And ed5 is an important mistake. So, mistake because you are freeing the bishop on c8. And what we should instead do is play something like knight e2, right? We want to keep the pawn on e4. And this is a very common mistake. So a little bit related to the last last game, not show, is that we want to be sensitive to our good and bad pieces. And here we are freeing the bishop. And we are also giving away a strong center pawn. Now, I don't really like what black does. He plays ed. I think knight e2 makes, he plays, knight e5. I think ed makes more sense. Conceivably, maybe worried about some business like this. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's even some GM games with this variation. Okay. So, ed, knight d5, knight e2, good move. Bishop e7, castles. And now we kind of have a dilemma of how to play this thing. Well, rookie one, okay. And now, is b6 a mistake? It might be. Now you hit him with the old knight f4. And I think you're correctly saying that knight d5, ed5, knight f4 is quite good for you. Can't argue with that. So, okay, so put a question mark next to knight f4. Black obviously needs to do something else. Knight takes c3 comes to mind. Something lame like knight f6 or knight c7 comes to mind. Okay, so that's our first tactical miss. And now it's important to see that, let's say that you miss the tactic, right? The other thing that should lead you away from playing knight f4 is the knight, it's not clear it belongs there, right? And now here you go crazy here with queen g4. And just, I want to say intuitively, it doesn't look like it should work. Let's think about other plans for a second. I'll talk first with the good news. The good news is this knight is dominated by the pawn, and it's not totally clear how I'm going to break the pin. Bad news is my knight on f4, and I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with it. Queen g4 is interesting in that we are... Maybe if we can achieve knight e6, he'll die a noble death. Yeah. But it's hard to know because the knight is poor on f4. So I don't have a great move for you here. It's just that queen g4 feels superficial. Bishop f6. One thing that I don't like about bishop f6 is it sets you up to later get a tempo, do something with your terrible knight with knight h5. So the other move to think about would be queen d7. Right, and I do think you are threatening knight takes c6 here. I think that's true. So you played bishop d2, and we got to actually say just a couple variations here. So on knight e6, right, this is maybe winning a pawn for us. So the problem is queen d7, I think. And then, that's that whole pin and win thing that they talk about. Okay. So bishop f6, bishop d2, and now knight e5. Now if bishop d2 is forced, then we got to say this bishop f6 thing wasn't too dumb. Queen e2, bishop takes, and now you take with a knight. I don't like that. I want you to take with the king. At least here we might later play knight h5 or something. On the knight, oh gosh. What are we gonna be doing? Oh no. Oh no. And now a very fancy pants move, which I don't believe in at all. You're saying the only move that works. Well, by the way, this happened. Why does this happen? Because we took with a knight. So king takes g2 bows. Okay, queen d5, knight h4, and now I'm like, well, let's just say the obvious. Things have gone wrong. Because we're not really threatening much. And the knight is terribly misplaced. You mentioned rook a d8. It's a thought. I like the idea of a4, knight c4. Yeah, I mean, rook a d8 would be a very simple building move to make. So, your opponent, watch what happens actually. What happens here is your opponent fixes your bad piece. So again, my theory is that the reason why players are not sensitive about bad pieces is because they're playing opposition who fix their bad piece. So the knight on h4, terrible, right? What is he going to essentially do? Black is going to trade this piece for this beautiful steed. And now we get an interesting endgame. Maybe white, or maybe black is a touch better because of the pawns, but I don't know. Good move. I like a4 a lot. a6. Poor move. And he says, was done to prevent a5, according to my opponent. The old-timers like to say that the threat is often greater than the execution. And so in your annotations, let me stress, if you say a6 is a mistake, well, tell us what you think black should have done, right? I think, for example, king f8. And put an eval on there. I think KGB might say, black's a little better to king f8, So mistake. Boom. Excellent. We want to play rook b1 anyway to get off of the pin. And now king f1. And that's a great note. He says c4. I think fixing black's kingside, he means queenside pawns, could have been a better move. I did not do it at the time because I did not like opening the diagonal for the dark bishop. Yeah. Okay. A question I would like to ask is, if we play rook c4, just a tactical idea, are we giving him the business or not. Maybe we should even begin with bishop f4. So bishop f4, rook b7, rook c4. Are we giving him the business? Probably not. But he would have to play something like bishop e7. Okay, so one thing about king f1 is a little weird. Is like, yes, we should bring our king to the center, but we need a plan. One nice thing about c4 is maybe we have a plan of actually playing rook b3 and then bringing these bad boys around. Okay. Okay, king f1, king f8. Now we do this. Okay, good move. And you say limiting the king, I don't know. So let me just say, obviously I haven't looked at this game yet, but it will be all about rook activity. And the question I have here is, what about rook c4? We're threatening rook c5. We might imagine rook here. And then I want to ask this question. Why? I just want to make my rook active. That's all I'm doing. I'm not being, I promise, I'm not being a genius. And if dude takes, I want to undouble, you know, and then I want to maybe bring my king up or something. Yeah. And then, of course, on rook c8, we also can play d4 as well. And it looks like we got a little bit of zhuzh. h4, I'm not really sure what it does. g4, a little frisky. How do we feel about this? So, this looks proper. And you said, bang, nice. So we ended up getting a tactical opportunity. Our opponent helped us out a little bit. It would be great for us to analyze the position after b5. We have several moves here. You write rook b4. Maybe. On rook b4, I'm assuming king e5. You know. It's a hot position. Life can be so nice. Thank you. Thank you for gifting this up. Ooh, this one's a hard one. One not dumb thing would be to just play GH. And then the question with rook b4 becomes, does the black king get active? Hard to say, honestly. Yeah, he's looking kind of active. So we could imagine here, 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 check, here. Let's say you rip the pawn. I don't know what else you want to do. Bang. And then it looks like counterplay. It might not be over, though. Look at this. Boom, boom, boom. I guess we got to take. Boom. And I'm not exactly sure, but I think black should hold. Notice he's active. Right? So this, one of the things I say a lot is people should really go deep on these kinds of positions, right? Go deep, and that's how you will learn the end games. Again, we have the dojo, we have a bunch of algorithms and stuff, but like learning these kinds of positions is going to be key. And I look at this b5 and I'm like, oh man, I don't know exactly. I don't know. How would I know? I would have to figure it out. And then obviously we have a jump, but our problem is that their king is potentially better than ours. And then if GH, well, they've got a bunch of different moves to consider. A simpleton move might be B4, intending king E5, king D5, and then what are we going to do? But B4 probably not so hot because of C6, rook C7, rook B4. Ooh, it's hot. It's hot. Maybe king E5, king E2, king D5, AB. And now whether it's rook B5 or AB, let's put rook B5. I think we're dreaming about that. And are we sure what's going on? No. Still very hot. It looks like black should survive with rook C5. Okay, so that's just a preliminary analysis. It would be, if I was doing this game for myself, more time on a position like this. So HG4, boom, good move, good move. He's just giving you all his coconuts. He just gives them all to you, buddy. Okay. E5, what is he supposed to do? H5, genius. And I king D5. Well, we got to analyze rook takes C6, my friend. Is it hot? Oh, it's spicy. There's some spice going on here. So we're about to play king G5, and black needs something special. Yeah. So it looks lost, but, definitely need to check this one. Yeah, it's just barely hanging on there, yeah. With E4, we get to play D, E, F, E, king G4, and we're going to be close enough to catch this runner. And this guy's, of course, the evil outside threat. So what happens here is black just blunders time. He just gives him time. Now, I think he's already toast, and honestly, we should talk about what? We should talk in this position about the move A5, right? Got to talk about that move. Yeah. So, king E5. This is a fun, I like this H5. And now rook B6. Nice. And now he just chucks another pawn at you. Oh, he's just chucking them all. Okay. What you'll also see in this game is that when you play at this level of the endgame, you will often find that players lose the resistance level, right? You play as a GM, they're going to get a bad endgame. You get a good endgame against them, they're going to put a lot more defense. It doesn't have to be a GM, even in 1800, put a lot more resistance. Now, let's talk about how you can improve, Kevin. What I want you to see is basically from move 16 on. Okay, let's go over here. From move 16 on, you thought that the position was done. Let me explain. You thought, oh, this position's easy. There's not much to think about. It's just a game. We're moving some pieces around. No. As we saw, there was all kinds of stuff going on. But that's move 16, right? You stopped thinking. And so the simple way for you to improve, my friend, is just to think. Even force yourself to think. And one way to understand it is if you go over your games like this and do the endgame work, you're going to realize, like, oh yeah, Kraai might be a jerk, but he's not lying about the the manifold things that were going on in my game. Coors Light Cowboy, thank you so much. So, I'm going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Our YouTube, no one's watching on the YouTubes, buddy. All right. So, we want to then go to the next scoreboard up. So, that was 1200. We can go 1300. And we looked at Quad XE when we did the top of the dojo, and now we're going to look at it could be either clutch EZ or clutches. I kind of like clutches. So, pandemic player, playing for 3 years, right? And done a lot of work, dude, a lot of work. Even a lot of non-dojo time. And so we definitely want this player to progress. My first gut is they've never played OTB. That's my first just guess, but we'll click around on that. And then let's just click for a second. There's the graph. They have, they've been with us for a while, gained 79 points. And it's tough, dude. It's tough to graduate. So they need about 50 points on ye old Chess.com Rapid. All right, so let's go look. What are they doing, non-dojo? Chess media, build up your chess. Lots of stuff. Okay. And then let's click around a little bit. Tactics, mates in 2, great. I think it's probably goes up to 1470 in that cohort. 1471 a little harder. Winning chess tactics, program mates in 3, puzzle survival. Okay. And then we got some endgame work. We got just basically hasn't read any of the books yet. Okay. And touch of opening. All right. So definitely reading books isn't a bad thing. They're also reading these other books though. And these Yusupov books are often mentioned when people talk about books we should bring into the program. I would say the ones we consistently hear about are the Yusupov books and the Steps books. And actually there's a Reddit thread now that I posted about which material should go, which should stay. In fact, I'll post that in the chat. And that is simply every year, May 1st, we launch the new dojo. And so there's the thread there in Reddit. We use Reddit just to have an up-down vote. So people, they don't have to say anything, just go in there and be like, yeah, I like this or I don't like this, that kind of thing. And I just posted the things people had said. Like a lot of people said steps. I said, do you want to do steps? Some people said to get rid of tactics time. So I said, should we get rid of tactics time? That kind of thing. Okay, so now let's take a closer look at Clutch Easy's games. Oh, this looks like an over the board, so let's take a look. Nashville Summer Chess Classic, great. First OTB tournament. All right, here we go. Funny that we just had this. This is then a little bit more traditional. Okay, so you've done great, and Bishop D6 doesn't feel like the best square for me, and that's because it's hitting that rock on G3. This is going to be a minor complaint. Honestly, as long as you make a developing move, I'm not going to yell. The most natural move, I would say, is knight D7. You could also, if you're terrified of knight H4, play H6. Okay. So bishop D6, knight H4, bishop E4, and then definitely white makes a mistake here. The only way to rationalize playing knight H4 is to say, Bounce, I'm going to go steal your Bishovskis. You know? That's the only way. And then, in fact, though, actually, let's point out, in this position, a cool move would be zap. Why? Because we want to keep this chump knight here forever. You know, we'll keep that chump there forever. Yeah. So if he was going to do this, if white was going to do this, then probably knight c3. We could consider dc here, but let's just put a different move on the board, knight d7, knight h4. That would make a little bit more sense if white was going to be a greedy bishop stealer. Though, let me just say, if you've got nothing else, you have just a simple retreat, and this is a very solid position for black. Okay, so here we go. Knight h4, bishop e4. Boom! And so now let's stress what our advantage is. White has a terrible knight on h4, and you got rid of your bad bishop. Great, at no cost. b3. b3 suggests that white hasn't figured out that the knight on h4 is bad. Okay, e5, mistake. All right, remember what I said. It's often the case that players will free their opponent's bad pieces. So e5 frees the knight to come into f5. Otherwise, the knight is in shackles. The knight is in shackles. And now we just set him free with e5. Okay, now, a problem that often actually comes up in the Slav is, well, what do I do? You know, we saw that a little bit last time where black wanted to get violent with c5 ideas. And so a lot of times people think of e5 because they've seen other breaks similar to it. But we don't have, if we had a bishop on c8, then e5 for sure. Not only would we be covering f5, but we would be getting our bishop out. At this point, e5 isn't really going to help any of our pieces. So knight d7 would be the default. I think they should play knight f3, but let's look at your bishop b2 because that's what you were concerned about. Now you got a couple ideas. I'm going to show you a weird one. a6. I know it looks weird. I think they should play knight f3, and then we're going to gain a little space with b5. This is a very typical Slav idea. And you could probably yell at me, and I would have sympathy if you yelled at me by saying, Kraai, you told us not to move pawns, and now you're doing it. I get it. I get it. We're trying not only to gain some space, but we want to be able to maybe open a front on the queen side. I'd rather not play e5 and loosen my structure. Okay, so e5, and they help you dramatically with de. They should definitely consider the moves knight f5 and bishop b2. It's hard to argue against knight f5. It's just screaming to be played. So now the knight will not come in with tempo, and he just pinned his piece. Now, you play d4, and conceivably are missing the fact that knight f3 is coming. That would be good to note. Well, basically, you do note it. You say, however, the tactic doesn't work. So, oh, thank you. Quantum. I'm going to call you Quantum. So it asks the question what we should do. A default answer for us could be just to play DC and then knight d7. That could be a default. And so notice what's going on now with d4 is the knight gets to fix itself for free. And then probably white might be better after that. I was looking at queen a5. This has a little bit of cleverness in that if they play bishop b2, we can go d4, and now knight f3 is not doing anything. If they move the knight, then we spank them with... We're not spanking anybody, Kraai. We're not spanking anybody. I was thinking this might be a little spanking. This doesn't even work. But the reason I didn't even think about queen a5 is this bishop d2 puts us in an uncomfortable situazione. So yeah, I think we should take and then knight d7. All right, so d4, knight f3, good move. Rook d1, looks reasonable. c5, note to bene now. Both of whites, you probably had to do this, by the way, so I'm not criticizing c5, but both knights are now free. So c6 freed the knight on c3. Very common thing in the Slavs, you're dominating that knight. We talked about that in the first Slav game with Buktuk today. So e3, the most ambitious. And let us note that bishop g5 also looks highly annoying. Very annoying. So e3, knight c6, knight e4. To me, we should be talking about ed. And now, of course, we should be talking about knight takes e4. So, something I talk a little bit about in the book that we're hopefully getting out soon is that the lower cohorts, you'll often find very good explanations, but very few variations. And so, for example, here, I get it, rook e8 is poor, but you should tell us what you think you should have done, right? What should you have done if it's not this? It's admittedly not an easy situation. One fanciful move would be d3. I don't think it works. It might work, dude. It's a fanciful move. And so this is what I mean about tactics. They're like tactical puzzles, they are there. So let's get into this tactics puzzle. If queen d3, I have knight e4, and I have one apiece. Okay. What about rook d3, Kraai? Does that end all your dreams? Well, we're going to then ask about knight b4. They make a snip. We make a snip. They should probably take our knight. Now, are we busted? Maybe. We might be. We're just asking questions here. Rook a8, rook a8, rook b1. We're probably toast here. Still, I wanted to look at it. I needed to look at it. These are the things I would want, because you're in trouble, right? You're in dire need. So we need to do something. If bishop b6, the problem I'm seeing is you end up getting whacked by a c5. That's scary. So then the obvious thing is knight e4, queen e4. Well, rook e8. Probably queen d5, but it's, white's got to think about it. Okay, so this would be the variation to consider. It's not a done deal yet. For example, queen d5, then we'll play bishop b6. And now we're not going to get zapped by c5. We're definitely still worse, but it's not over yet. Yeah, and in fact, anywhere the queen moves, we're probably going to play bishop b6. Okay. Hey, Sombrero and Clutch EZ is here in the chat, so that's cool. So rook e8, and now we're probably toast. Now, he doesn't have to play ed4. So with ed4, you're only going to be down a pawn. Well, maybe it's only a pawn either way. I'm just looking at this thing. Okay, ed4, snip, snop, queen c5. Right, we could definitely do some variations thinking about what, if anything, black could have done better. But this does look very nice for black. Bishop e3 and bishop g5 look good here. This is, we're going to call bishop b2 a romantic move, see? Bishop b2, he's like, I'm going to mate him on g7. Well, maybe you're not, buddy. By the way, we should be feeling the pain of this bishop. It needs to get moved. Queen d3, and now a nice move, bishop e5. Good. And then again, with queen d3, you should tell us what you think the guy should do, especially if there's no great move here for white, excuse me, then bishop b2 was probably incorrect. As romantic as it is. Probably rook a d1. He still holds his advantage, right? Yeah, so that's why the bishop b2 looks nice, but it's probably like one of these moves here. Makes a lot of sense to me. I guess I'm partial to bishop g5. Just to try to... Oh, bishop g5. I was like, are you hanging bishop e5 bows? Well, we gotta... that's okay. Maybe the variation could even go like this. Here, 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 here. And white has a clear advantage. Okay, so he blew it. Good move, I like that. At least in principle, I like it. And he should definitely not take if he can avoid it. And so the obvious question is, why didn't dude play queen c3? That would at least follow up on his romantic aspirations along this diagonal, right? And I still like black's position a lot, maybe queen f5, later knight e4. But this, no bueno. He invites you in. I like that you took with the rook, honestly. I like that because we're not afraid of bishop f6. Let's read what you write. I assume knight e4 was slightly better because it puts the knight in the center, but I liked rook e4 because I threatened to double up or even play rook d8 in the future. And it entices white to take on f6, which I'm totally happy with going into. Good. Okay. Now, I don't like king f1. Rook d1 is the only move. He must contest the file. And I get it. He was probably afraid of rook e2. That's understandable. But you can't give him both. You can't give you both king f1 and rook d8. You can't do that, buddy. This is what they call in warfare controlling the air. You control the air, my friend, and you're about to be dropping bombs onto his position. h4, I hate that move. If I was worried about anything, it was some kind of knight h4, f5 business. But we do have times on this one? No. Okay. Probably okay, yeah. He just invited you in. Say thank you very much. Good. Oh, now he's going down. He's going down with the ship. Yeah, simple chess. Oh, in general, white should never trade. I get it. It's a bad situation, but now it's just like the rook against the knight. It's such an unfortunate thing. I don't understand that move. I think you're motivated by putting the pawn to a4, but the simple thing you should the simple thing you should be doing is putting your king as the blockader. This guy is totally pinning the king. So this I don't like. It's admittedly probably crispy critters, but you know what do you want him to do? Good move. You could have also played A2, but it's all the same. Uh-oh, wait a second. Knight C3, you play A2. Crispy critters. This is where time would be useful for us to see what's going on. In principle, I don't like giving him the knight d5. Yeah, I don't want to allow that. I'm assuming that's winning, but why did we even give him the chance? Oh, I blew that. I meant this one. Winning. Okay. Okay, here we go. Wait a second. Rook F4 bows. We got to talk about Rook F4, man. We got to talk about it, man. Jesse, when are you playing the Senior Champs? That's going to be this July. Is that right? Yeah, late July. It's going to be a monster event in St. Louis. Kostya is already buying a house for me so I can stay there. Yeah, I think people are blundering stuff. There we go. Now it's going to be easy. Good. I like King C8. Okay. So, Clutch EZ. You're in the chat. So cool. I want you to make it, of course, the next level. Let's go back. And, yeah, we need you to get to this 1650. USCF, great. Putting that in there. I assume that was your first tournament. So the obvious ways of improving are to more detail in the notes, the OTB. I think, it might be frustrating at first with the OTB, but that will help you, especially with longer thinking and getting a handle on how to play a variety of positions because you're really thinking deeply there. And if we go, I just want to look at this, a different game for a second. So this is an online game, I think. And good, you're using your time here. So, yeah. Well, let's blaze through it real quick. We actually talked about this A6, B5 plan in the last game. So both sides have played a little bit weird, but now black is totally fine. We got to say black's a little bit better. Oh, well, you're making a comeback. I thought you left to go out to go eat lunch. Yeah, and there we're seeing, I guess this was the big tank here on move 22. Okay, so it's good to see that if you have a time problem, it's going the other way. So we see there, Queen D2. Right, yeah, epic tank. One thing to see about this position too is that it's fundamentally an intuitive position. And Therefore, we shouldn't be tanking forever on it. Let's say some obvious things. Your bishop doesn't quite know what's going on. Otherwise, you'd be fine. Simple chess by black. Bishop d3 with the dirty trick of rook d8, bishop h7. Good. No, I like the way your opponent's playing it, I think. He could have talked about bishop f3 and then queen c5. I don't know what way. I'm not impressed with what he's doing. Good. Now you're holding it together. There you go. So I would spend more time on this, as should you. But the main point is, right, you needed more time. You're playing like on increment or something here. Almost increment. The pro move, if you will, would be e4 here to cut the knight. And I get it, you'd be afraid of rook c2. However, rook c2, we have rook d8 and knight f7. And I think you're going to have a great initiative after that against the king. And then he should really avoid e4, because once you achieve e4, you kill the knight. So knight d5 seems like a must to me. And black gets some play. I don't know how good it is, but he gets a play. e4. Now that finally happens. And now, right, well, the knight's talking to you. Yeah. All right, so it's a time situation. The black's already, I guess, a little bit better anyway. So, Clutch Easy, you're doing great work, buddy. You're doing great work. You're playing a stronger opponent. I didn't like a lot of the moves black played either. So I don't feel like you were not dramatically outplayed in this game. Like, I didn't really like this rook e8 thing, And let's just say the normal move here, I guess, for white would be rook c1. That would be the first thing coming up. Anyways, good work, and let's go to the next one. And next is going to be 1450. And we talked about JMB recently. Now we're going to talk about Echo Wings. Echo Wings has been in the program since 1.0. There we go. And what's going on? So, Canadian. There we go, 1342. And there's a custom. Who knows what that is? Sometimes the graphs confuse me. Like this says he's lost 17, or he or she, they. But I don't, it seems like if we started here, I've definitely gained some points. All right, let's take a look. So here's our time breakdown and everything. Looks great. Tell us something about yourself, Echo Wings. We want to know. The macro distribution looks great. Let's click on games. This looks like maybe a real game. OTB game. Yeah. Okay. Oh, we're talking about French Canadian here. Oh, here we go. A6, fancy. Okay. F4. B4. Knight CE2. D5. Oh, interesting moment for white. The other move here would be knight h3. I know it doesn't look right, but just to hold our pawn. Usually, in general, I'd like to hold the pawn. But all right, e5. Knight f3. Good. Bishop e7. And now dude plays for c3. Big moment for white here. Because, right, you decided not to play h5. And then the question becomes, should he have played g4? And I'll just say g4 looks scary. So it could go g4, knight h4, knight takes, bishop takes f5, right? Do I know exactly what's going on? No, but I just know, like, now the knight on e2 is going to have the f4 square, and it's a little bit scary. Okay, so on h5, well, it'll be interesting to think about what white could do. He could still eventually arrange h3, g4, but of course now it's a little harder to do. I get that you don't want to play h5 because you give him this square. So bishop e7, c3. And now you say castles is a mistake. Definitely seems like we should develop our knight. Now so he kind of waited for you on this one. Now, the reason you dismiss this is because of that move. And g5 might work, but the problem is it's going to take a half a second before black or white actually makes contact with the bishop. So if white doesn't win the bishop, then I think we're pretty happy. One, you have knight c6 in here, that looks good, but also f6. I would be worried about as well for white. The other obvious move, though, is maybe just ye old f5. Here, maybe you're better suited to meet it. Let me just play knight d7, because these moves, they didn't do that much for white. Okay, so knight h6. One thing you should tell yourself about that move is that Kraai is upset. He's upset that you killed your knight, Bose. Okay, well, actually, we get to see your times here. That's good. So you spent 11 minutes on this. Yeah. Yeah. Now white has a raison d'etre, as the French Canadians would say. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. Oh, Kevin James is in the chat too. Oh, great. Okay, so I'm assuming h3 was played. Yeah. Now, king h8 to prepare for opening the g file. So one thing to say about this position is white is definitely better, but it's a space problem, and we're going to see if white is good about containing your bad piece on h6. It'll be a little bit of an art form here. Now on bishop a6, you say you're not threatening anything, but you are threatening that d-pawn. So one of the many reasons why bishop d2 was a weird move was, hey, at some point you can play bishop a6. Okay, so I think this is a little weird. And now dude plays knight g3, which maybe, I don't know. It feels like what they're trying to do is to crack you with f5. But like I said, as long as you can't effectively break yourself, I don't really want to do it. One dirty trick here is to play c4. And that shuts your counterplay down a little bit and tickles the d5 pawn. And the idea is pretty simple, is that he's saying, hey, if you can't move your knight, then I will have more force in the center. Okay, so knight g3. Okay. In some ways, I think you should welcome this f5 thing, because now think about it. Yeah, at the very least, your chump knight is doing something, right? He's doing something. Yeah. So, boom. Right. So a lot of times these players, they can't imagine doing something besides going for the big old attack. Right? He could have played for a variety of other ways, and he's going for this big old attack. All right, you play EF, and you do some good analysis. He's talking about D4 and such. And you're about to do something kind of weird. Let's just look at your intention. Your intention is like, when I see that, it's like I'm seeing that you think you're pretty well toast, right? But let's play it. Let's just see if we can come up with something different. Well, okay, the first thing that crosses my mind is g6. If he takes, I don't think we have any problem. He's freeing our rook. So the only real move would be like knight g3 or knight f4. On knight g3, I'm interested fundamentally in trading pieces, so bishop h4 comes to mind. I might also play queen c7, though, because on any f6, I'll take this bad boy and then smack this one. So this one is still pretty dynamic for you. Yeah. Your king might not be worse when this all blows up. Your d4 move is interesting. Yeah. And another move just to think about is to play rook a6 at some point. And the intention there is to say, oh, that will always be useful, and I will have ideas like EF and then G6, or just the simple G6, and my rook is just useful on A6 for both the protection of the E6 square and then the scope beyond. Right? So these are just some ideas to look at. This is obviously, well, I think it's obvious, isn't it? It doesn't look good. All right, big moment for white. He decides he's just trying to crush you, buddy. King h1. Rook a7. Okay, I'm okay with that. Then you hit him with yield d4. He says, I got all the time in the world. You say, I'm going to take it. Look what we've done to our bishop. We're going to have to see if white takes the pawn, takes the bishop ever, you know. We'll see. We'll test his skill level if he ever takes that thing. Okay, so now you're going to say that you can survive this endgame. Probably not true. In principle, a good move. He trades. Oh, did I call it? Did I call it, boss? I said, this guy is not going to realize what his asset is. And it's just, at some point, he's just going to take that thing. Oh, man. Shame. The shame. Oh, Oh, the deep, deep shame. Now, before we shame him too much, I think there's actually a little bit of a, well, I don't know. There's no problemito. I was thinking for half a second that bishop h4 is a threat, but anytime bishop h4 comes, we have rook takes e5. Yeah. So king g2, rook g1, these are all good looking. No, not rook g1. Rook f3, you got moves. Okay, so mistake, we saw it coming 1,000 miles away. And now white might have to be a touch careful not to lose this bad boy, because the f5 pawn is now just clearly a weakness. And our knight, at least is doing something. Rook e4, do I get it? I don't get it. Rook g8, rook g4. And you took, which I don't really like, boss. Do we got to do this? Once you take, then that rook on f1 doesn't have to babysit the f5 pawn. Okay, so like a couple moves we have here. A4, just to see what he wants to do, because I don't know what he wants to do. And also rook g7 makes some sense. I take it back. Rook g7, the guy can play bishop h6. And our grief is that on h5, then he can play rook h4. It's very distressing to me that he took this thing. Let's think for a second. No, it's not super easy. On a practical level, I like a4. I'm just going to increase what we could call the kinetic energy of the pawns. I just want to make it so later I'll have a pawn on a3 or something, and then he has to worry, about the coconuts over there. Okay, but this is bad because we've just freed the rook on f1. Simple chess. No, now we might be, we're, I don't know, this is say it doesn't look good. Doesn't look good. He says rook h1 and doesn't like it for white. Well, okay, timeout. So I was talking trash about the way black played. Maybe he's somehow okay here. Well, let's talk about obvious stuff. How about I play king g3? King f3 maybe too. But the intention is on h5, I want g5. And this looks horrendo. And I could consider g5 first, but I was concerned that maybe I wasn't doing a full body slam on this move. Right? That's why I played king g3 first, so that I have the option to play king g4 to protect everything. In principle, black should be toast. Okay, so rook h1. I like it. Thank you. And now we have to ask ourselves who's better and why. I think it's clear that you can't be losing. King h7, a3. Um, and now you're just going to play king g7. Now, on a practical level, I think you can play for a win. Yeah. So I think an interesting move here is knight c6. It's an interesting cry. Maybe it's not. Maybe I take it back. The intention was to get frisky with e5. But no, he's got king f3. Hold on. So maybe you're right. Maybe we just got to sit. I feel like white deserves pain for all of the crimes that they've committed, though. Okay. So knight g8 is incorrect. Your knight c8 move is fine, too. Let's actually give... anyways, white's not doing much. This scares me. Let's actually play your knight c8 for a second. Just on the practical belief that maybe we're the one playing for an advantage. So knight c8, there's no king f3. I don't know what they're going to do. I think white's the one who has to be a little careful. Yeah, I don't know. We're going to put this knight here. Let's just say they shuffle for a second. So I think they should play bishop g3, but let's just say they don't for a second. Is it true that this is maybe a scary thing for them? Well, maybe. That might turn into a scary thing. Bishop g3, ed. Okay, so it looks like this is going to turn into a draw. Oh, he went for it. Oh, buddy. Oh, buddy, he went for it. Now, by the way, we played passively, so in a way, we deserve this. We deserve this. Oh, man. Are we lost? Maybe. Oh, this is going to be very frightening. Intuitively, I think we're toast. Okay, here we go. Boom, boom, boom. Bravo for white for going for this, man. Check to the miserable. King d6. Knight f4. Check to the miserable. King f8. And then he misses e7. Which means, I guess, that this whole thing, once the sacrifice happens, is winning for white. King d7. Oh, and then the dirty blockade happens. If I was white, I still wouldn't give up here. Like king d7. I'm going to take the pawns. You know? I'm going to take the pawns. Maybe knight g6. Knight g6, king d6. It's still a grim business. Okay, so this is the way the game goes down. This is an exciting game. Whoo, man. Okay, so that was cool, man. We've definitely seen, by the way, that as we progressed up the cohorts, we've done 3 today, I think, we have seen a gradual improvement in play, right? And we had some maneuvering chess happening here. White makes some mistakes, okay? And we played the miserable knight h6. Don't do it, Mouse, unless you gotta. Don't do it. Like, let's put it this way. If we were going to play knight h6, we would want to claim that we got something for it. But in that position, we really didn't have much for it. Also, just to note, he freed your business, right? So the reason the players at this level aren't sensitive yet to bad pieces is our opponents free him. By attacking the king, they had our knight do something. Okay, so amazing business. Let's go do another one. Echo, buddy, we want you to make it, man. We need you to make it. 50 points. 50 points. Okay. Okay. Kevin James is talking about King G7 and King F8. Good. All right, so let's go scoreboard. What are we up to now? I forgot already. Were we up here? I think we did this just now. Right, so that was Clutch EZ. 14-15 was Ye Old Echo. And now we're 15-16. And that is going to be, we did Enthusiastic New, so I believe it's Xerxes, because NFV doesn't have anything in the last 7 days. So let's take a look at Xerxes. We had some disputes about the last 7 days. Sometimes it doesn't show up for people. Follow Xerxes. All right. So Xerxes also a little bit up and down here. And also Xerxes, buddy, you're in the wrong cohort, man. You're in the wrong cohort, mouse. Yeah, you're definitely in the wrong cohort. Yo, Xerxes, what's up, buddy? Let's go. So, yeah, good breakdown. Everything looks good on this first glance. And it looks like, too, you started in the wrong cohort. That's what it kind of looks like, you know, or I don't know. In any case, it started May of last year. So let's take a look at Xerxes here. Right, classical. Actually, just make sure maybe there's one that looks like an over the board. No, they all look like they're Xerxes. All right, we're going to get some time. Let's take a look at the time graph. Oh, there's not. It's not listed, unfortunately. Okay, this is a weird move. It's a very weird move. This is one of the reasons it's just like, why are we studying openings if our opponents are going to play moves like that? So now you're better. Great. That looks like a faulty check to me. And now you make an enterprising decision with castles. Well, that's fun. That's fun. So let's talk about it a little bit. Queen e7 would have been fine. When he takes, he's going to open up your F rook. And his pieces will be terrible. He's done it to himself, right? So in principle, I like this. Now, do I believe that this is equal for white? I kind of don't, but let's look. I would play pawn takes. But even queen takes. No, black is definitely better. Look at these chumps. Look at these chumps. Come on. Okay. So. Queen h3. Now you gave some interesting moves here. So you're saying that castles, queen c7, g3, knight d7 is equal. I like your game here, buddy. I think you're doing great. But it's true that I don't know exactly how it's going to go. I guess I do. You're going to put a rook on e8. You're going to put the knight on e5. And it's time to have a fiesta. Right? It's fiesta time. So queen h3. Check. I think I approve of that message. It's a little sad to move the rook away from the f-file, of course. But if we get him to play knight e2, pinning himself, we're going to take it, right? Now, here we definitely need to do some more work on the moves themselves, right? In particular, like let's say we just play knight d7, which we want to do. Does the guy have a way to fix his coconuts? And it's not easy to fix the coconuts because on bishop e3 I can play c5, and I think you can't castle because of d4. So knight d7, the more natural move. Why? You want to bring out your boys. Queen e3, queen f7, queen f3. Now he is threatening to castle. And white is the one. White's the one who says, no, no, no. I'm the big boy here. Maybe he is. In which case, we needed to go back in our notes and talk about what happened wrong, right? So, because I thought black was better. There's no way I want to draw here, you know? But yeah, it looks like we might have blown it with that whole queen f7, queen e7, f7 stuff. Okay, so queen e6. We got some holy mollies happening here. And queen f5. Now, maybe it's a mistake. Tell us what you think the guy should have done. This whole thing, too, I don't know. Knight g4. Okay, he's got other moves. Let's say the obvious. He's got other moves. He can castle, and then he's always got knight f4. So I don't know if this maybe helped you a little bit. No, that's definitely a bad move. So you got to say thank you when they give it to you. And now I think one of the things that white didn't appreciate, I'm going to guess they didn't appreciate, is their bishop is terrible. And so the first move that should come to mind, I don't know if it's any good, but just the first thing to think about for white would be to play c4. Right? Here. And I don't really like rook 8. I'm not thrilled with rook 8 e8 because then he can give you the tacos like he does and play king d2 with tempo. So, one basic way to play the position would be to play rook takes, rook takes. Now, we can't take it yet, but we are staring at it. And then consider knight c5. There's no entrance for this poor fool, and we are preventing c4, and a5 might become a thing. Black's a little bit better. Okay, so here we go. King d2, bishop f4, good move. At least it's got a good idea. Knight e2, h4. Check to the miserable king. So, dude obviously needed to play king d1. King e1 might be a move too, but it's a little weird. Okay. Well, there she blows, my friends. There she blows. Let's just check your technique now. Things are hanging, but we're trusting you now. What's going on? Okay. What is going on? Why are we giving them all this stuff? Oh. Okay. So, my friends, there's a lot going on here we need to talk about. This isn't... yes, it should be winning, but it's not totally trivial. The white king needs to go over here, my friends. He needs to go over here. And... Rook h3 looks even stronger. He's just weakening himself. Okay, so let's think about this game for a second. Oh, and then I gotta run. So this kind of horrible move is you're gonna get a lot, right? You're gonna get people giving you time. c6, I love it. Knight c3, not great. It's like not feeling the problems of both the knight and the bishop. So now this dirty check happens. What's wrong with knight d4? It's not a developing move. It's playing with their pretty piece. In principle, I like what you did, but the simple move was just queen e7. And then what are you going to do? You're going to take back with the pawn, and we're crushing him because this is a it's a castle, and this is a wassel, a castle and a hassle, if you know what I mean. And look at how dead these guys are. Complete chumps. It was interesting, though. And like you said, I think probably castles is probably what needs to happen here. And then here, you need to play knight d7 bows. Great compensation. Now, I got a coach, he would really yell at me if I sacked the pawn here. But I'm giving you a pass, man. He'd be like, what are you doing? It was so easy the other way. Why'd you have to do it this way? He'd get on me, dude. He'd get on me. In any case, the simple thing for you to do is to go deeper into these annotations, right? There's a lot of stuff here that went unquestioned, right? Okay. So, here we go. Let's rate somebody.